Hi, this is Josh Culp. We are learning Daf Shvui. We are learning Masechet Avodah Zarah. We're on page 73, Ayin Gimmel. And what I want to talk about during this video are a couple of cases where the Amoraim clearly state things that are against the simple reading, the pshat of the Mishnah. And it's a good example of how there's a dissonance often between the notion that the Mishnah is more authoritative because it's Tanaitic, it's older, versus the reality that when the Mishnah and the Amoraim, the later sages, contradict each other, usually the Talmud will resolve the Mishnah to make sure that it works with the Amoraim. And I want to give just a couple examples of that. The first Mishnah on the beginning of Ayin Gimmel Amud Aleph says, Yayin nesech asur va'oser b'chol. If yayin nesech, libated wine or wine, Gentile wine, falls into other wines, it prohibits it in the smallest amount. So literally, if we took this to its greatest extent, if a drop of yayin nesech were to fall into a large barrel of non-yayin nesech, of regular Jewish wine, all of the regular Jewish wine would be prohibited. Now that's true partly because this is wine falling into other wine, and whenever you have like substances, they prohibit it at the smallest amount, a mixture, and also because yayin nesech is so stringent. The laws regarding yayin nesech are very stringent. But we read in the Gemara, we read several attempts to try to mitigate this. The most blatant attempt is the first line of the Gemara. When Rav Dimi came in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, he said, one who pours yayin nesech from a barrel into a vat, even if he does it all day long, rishon batel. Each first drop will be nullified. So what Rabbi Yochanan seems to think is, if yayin nesech is a small amount, the prohibited substance falls into a permitted substance, and it's a small amount, and it's the same kind, it immediately becomes nullified. And then what you have is, like, picture drop by drop, slow motion. I was speaking very slowly there. Slow motion, it falls in drop by drop. Each drop is nullified by the vastly larger quantity of yayin nesech, and so on and so on. And what you have, of regular wine, not yayin nesech. So what you have is, drop falls in, it's nullified. Another drop falls in, it's nullified. Until you might have more wine in there that was originally prohibited. And if you took this to its furthest extent, you can't really, but theoretically, you could sort of purify your yayin nesech, your libated wine. You're not allowed to, because you're not allowed to levatel isur lechatchila, nullify a prohibition ab initio, intentionally do it. But if it happened accidentally, you could nullify vast quantities of yayin nesech. The Gemara notes this is against the Mishnah. Right? The first kushia raises, it doesn't make sense with the Mishnah. The Gemara tries to resolve everything, and it does. Whether or not it's satisfactory, I don't know, but it tries to resolve the Mishnah, saying the Mishnah refers to one situation, and Rabbi Yochanan's leniency refers to another situation. Another statement that appears later on on the same page is when Rabbi Yochanan, Ravine comes and says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, if yayin nesech, libated wine, falls into a vat, and a pitcher of water falls in there, we ro'ina teheter ki'ilu eino, we pretend like the permitted wine isn't there. V'hashar ma'im rabin alav umevatlinoto, and the rest we see as water is more than the prohibited substance and annuls it. So let's think of it this way: you've got, let's say, a drop, or like a small cup of yayin nesech and a flask of water fall into a vat of regular wine. If it was just yayin nesech that fell into the regular wine couldn't annul it, because it's two like substances. And when a like substance, a forbidden substance, falls into the same substance that's a like substance, it prohibits it even in the smallest quantity. But if that small amount of yayin nesech fell into a water, the water might be more enough that as long as the yayin doesn't give taste to the water remains permitted. So what we can do here is fictitiously pretend like the permitted wine isn't there, and we have a case now of a little bit of prohibited wine falling into a larger quantity of water. The water annuls it, and when that whole mixture falls into permitted vat of wine, the permitted vat of wine annuls the whole thing, or it pretends like not there, it's all annulled, and the whole thing is permitted. Again, this seems to be more lenient than the Mishnah. I don't think the Mishnah would agree with this. Finally, I want to skip ahead to the last Mishnah on the page. The Mishnah says quite clearly, Zeh haklal, the general rule is min b'mino b'mashehu. When two like substances mix, it doesn't matter how small the prohibited substance is, the entire mixture is prohibited because you can't taste it. If wine falls into wine, you can't taste how much prohibited wine is in the entire mixture. Right? It all is the same taste, and therefore even the smallest amount causes a prohibition. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, two Amoraim of Eretz Yisrael, and they say all of the Isurin Sheb'Torah, most Isurin that are in the Torah, bein b'minan, bein shelo b'minan b'notein tam, whether or not they fall into a like substance or an unlike substance, the prohibition only occurs when the forbidden substance causes a taste to be imparted. Now, there's no way to even test this, as we know, and so you have to resort to some kind of 1/60th test. But basically, Rabbi Yochanan is much more lenient than the Mishnah. The Mishnah says if a like substance falls into another like substance, it prohibits in the smallest amount. And Rabbi Yochanan says usually that's not the case. Only in the case of untithed produce and yain nesech are we strict. In all other cases, we can be lenient. Again, you can see here a tension between a tendency among Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish to be extremely lenient, especially vis-a-vis the Mishnah, which is relatively stringent. So that's an interesting example of cases where the Amoraim are really, in a sense, radically opposed to the laws in the Mishnah.